daughter, Melanie Smith-Taylor, will accept the award on behalf of the family and make a few remarks about her day. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, when we heard about this award, both my sister and I felt sorry that Dad couldn't be here because this would have meant a lot to him. And our agreement was, I told Sunday if she would write the speech, I would try to give it, not get too emotional. But I also want to thank our family members for coming. Dad had 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters, and many of our family members are here. Martha Karen, Carolyn, and Ben Hogan, Louise Vance, Billy Hogan, and then Rush, Jane, Krista, and Rush's. No George Smiths. But my father was a man of his words, especially written words. I guess you could call him a true wordsmith, someone who was skilled with words. He loved to read and he loved to write. From his days as a farm boy at Smith Hill in Oxford, Alabama, until his death at age 90, he was a voracious reader and writer. And perhaps this was why, even in his 10th decade, he was never considered elderly by anyone who knew him. Dad stayed current on everything, everywhere, from politics, especially if it involved Democrats, to sports, especially the Crimson Tide, to whatever caught his eye in the dozens of publications he read on a regular basis. He was no elitist when it came to reading, but true to his roots as a journalist, he especially loved the feel of a newspaper in his hands. Each morning he walked to his front gate at dawn and plucked 3 daily newspapers from his drive, the New York Times, Commercial Appeal, and the USA Today. He read many others online, especially those from Anniston or Montgomery or Tuscaloosa or Birmingham, looking for the recruits for the Alabama team. And he would often comment on a paper's makeup or how the editorial could be improved. Dad kept a book by his chair, along with a dictionary to look up words, meanings eluded him. He stowed a pad and pen in his pocket, wherever he went to jot notes and ideas for a column, or maybe a conversation. He maintained an insatiable curiosity about life, from the small moments to the large ones, and he was a master at spinning the slimmest of life's moments into a fully fleshed tale to make everyone smile or reflect. Dad's love of reading came, he said, from his father, whose classroom learning stopped early, but who read every book in the local library. He often told me that his father, who was born poor on a backroads Alabama farm, taught him that you are rich if you read. Books were that family's bank account, and all 5 children were college educated and had successful careers. Dad may have ridden to elementary school in an open buggy with his older sister Nan, who was also his teacher, but his world became much broader through the words he read and those he wrote. Dad compiled a hefty scrapbook of his early years, including those at Howard College, now Samford, and later the University of Missouri Graduate School of Journalism, which we brought for you all to peruse. It's filled with letters to various Alabama newspapers proposing ideas for freelance stories, and receipts for the small checks he received when they were published. $5 here, $10 there. We all laugh when we look at it. At Munford High School, he earned numerous honors, including most popular, most talented, most original, wisest, and biggest talker. He would remind us, though, with a laugh, that there were fewer than a dozen in his class. He wrote articles for the Munford newspaper, eventually branching out to the Birmingham News, and his scrapbook is filled with bylines from all over Alabama during his teens, where his ideas on every imaginable subject were spilled onto the page. In 1931, when he was 16, the Birmingham News wrote that the young Hugh Frank Smith possessed all the qualities of a crackerjack newspaper scribe. The article mentioned that he lived in a house with a windmill, but was terribly ambitious and persistent, as if those two did not go together. And that his favorite authors were Thackeray, Shakespeare, and Dickens. I'm not sure those were my choices at 16. I was pretty entrenched in Nancy Drew stories. He was president of his class and won a scholarship awarded by the Birmingham News to Howard College, which he attended from 1933 to 1937. At Howard, Dad won many honors both for himself and for the newspaper, the Crimson, for which he edited 3 years. He was the first freshman to be elected editor and the first to hold the post for 3 consecutive years. When his first issue appeared, students proclaimed it the best in years. He redesigned the makeup and shrunk it to tabloid size. He was also a correspondent for the Birmingham News and wrote a weekly column, something he did for most of the rest of his life. Under his guidance, the campus weekly newspaper won a variety of top awards from the National Scholastic Press Association. the National Organization for College Publications. The Crimson also received the top award for the College of Howard Size from the Associated College Press. When Dad wasn't writing, he seemed to be acting in campus theater productions. One article even mentioned his portrayal of Mae West in a local church production. During his senior year at Howard, Dad was hailed as the leading journalism student in Alabama. And these were all things my sister Sunny and I never knew about till we found this scrapbook. And he just kept on writing. He was also associate editor of the yearbook, and in his senior year, he started Campus, the first college newspaper in the country. It was similar to national news magazines like the Saturday Evening Post, but it had a section for literary arts. Campus combined 3 previous Howard publications, the weekly campus newspaper, the quarterly literary journal, and the alumni publication. Upon graduation from Howard, Dad attended the University of Missouri Graduate School of Journalism on a scholarship, graduating in 1938. He was one of 10 of 400 students selected to write editorials for the school paper. He also introduced novel makeup and design features, which won national attention. Although he wrote for many publications in high school and college, I guess you'd say that Dad's first real job was at the Memphis Press-Scimitar, where he was hired in 1938. He covered a variety of local news as well as movie premieres in New York, and the New York World's Fair for nearly 5 years, until World War II erupted his journalism career and he joined the U.S. Naval Reserve. While stationed in San Antonio, he met and married Rachel Ainsworth, a horsewoman from Iowa who was working on a guest ranch outside San Antonio. Dad was dating the daughter of the ranch owners, and when Rachel broke her leg, Dad was asked to take her candy to the hospital by the owners. And that was that. Although he enjoyed telling the story that he kept going back to visit Mother because of the candy she had in her room. The couple moved back to Memphis in '46, and Dad returned to the Press-Scimitar, where he remained as copy editor until the paper closed in '84. He will always be best remembered, however, for his weekly column, Man of the House, chronicling the life of his family and the happenings on their farm in Germantown. To this day, people come up to my sister and myself to say how much they loved his column and how it made them feel a part of the family. They say they miss that form of homespun journalism, which told small stories, but in a big way. My father had many loves, but his priority was family, closely followed by the Alabama Crimson Tide, whose games he attended from the 40s until shortly before his death. And let's not forget the Democratic Party, which he said brought electricity down his country road and lit up their house. And all these loves appeared often in his columns. He was very proud of my sister Sunday, who followed in his footsteps and was a national correspondent for Newsweek and later a producer for PBS in New York. I took after my mother and rode instead of wrote, and won a gold medal in the Olympics in Los Angeles in 1984. And then I've since worked as a color commentator for NBC Broadcasting in the Olympic Games since I was in competition, since I retired. As I said at the beginning, my dad loved words. In his last years, when his steps slowed a bit, but his mind never wavered, he began to read even more than usual. He decided he had never read the Bible, so he did, from Genesis to Revelations. He took to rereading the classics and was a fixture at the Germantown Library, keeping an eye out for the latest bestseller. And he didn't just read casually. He wrote page-long reviews of everything he read and filed them away neatly in a notebook. Dad was always proud of his years at Howard and would remind us that he was the only editor to be elected 3 years in a row. He was not a boastful man, but he was proud of his achievements as editor of the Crimson. He would drive through the Howard campus when he got a chance on the way to visit an Alabama relative or attend a game and at Legion Field. That meant we saw a lot of Howard as youth, and since one of Dad's sisters lived just over the hill. Dad was a journalist through and through, and he bemoaned the demise of afternoon newspapers. At first, he was nervous over the computer, but soon embraced the future and checked his email as often as teens check their Facebook. He got back in touch with many of his classmates in high school and college, including one of his teachers who was 100 years old he would visit in Birmingham. He kept up with all the recruits for the Crimson Tide and could tell you the stats for just about any game. After the Press-Scimitar ceased publication in 1984, Dad continued his weekly column for the Germantown News, and he wrote numerous op-ed pieces for the Memphis Commercial Appeal after that. His subject matter included everything from the renegade rooster at the farm to a comparative essay on his childhood and that of former President Jimmy Carter, to why Jennifer Aniston seemed to be on more covers of People magazine than anyone else. He was named Citizen of the Year by the Germantown Lions Club in 1986 for his long-time activism in the community, including his successful stand against a massive railroad yard in the heart of town years ago. He was also given the Germantown Arts Alliance Award in 1995. Other recipients have included authors Shelby Foote, John Grisham, and Eudora Welty. This would have been a very proud moment for Dad. He was an humble man, but he was also proud of everything he had achieved in journalism. He would have stood here at Samford, his alma mater, with his head a bit down and a sly grin starting to spread across his face. He might even have opened by repeating the remarks he made at his last major award. He would say, celebrities always accept their award by saying they don't deserve it, or I don't know why they were selected. He says, I'm not going to say that. If you think I deserve it, then I do. And then, wordsmith that he was, he would have gone home and written his own copy there.
Melody, thank you very much. What an exceptional man your father was. George, thank you very much for all you've done.